Well, rapper Kanye West is headed to the White House this morning for a meeting and a lunch with the president. On the docket, amongst some other things, violence in Chicago. So what impact will their talk have? Joining me now with some insight is Fox News political analyst and Chicago native Gianno Caldwell. Gianno, thank you so much for joining us very early this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Heather.
So what do you think about this meeting between Kanye and the president? Do you think anything will come from it?
Well, I think this is an exciting time when it comes to addressing the violence in Chicago. As you know, candidate Trump often discussed what was going on in Chicago, and I know to many on the left and naysayers in the media said, no, that isn't true. But what we see is systemic violence that has occurred in Chicago. As of today, we got over almost 24 shootings that have occurred this year, and the most deadly weekend in Chicago's history occurred this year. So when it comes to the topics in which they'll discuss, that'll be one of the things. Police reform, not police reform, but prison reform will be another, criminal justice reform, because I know Jared Kushner will be in the room, and these are issues that the administration does care about, and they want to see some solutions come to the table.
Yeah, and just to remind people at home, you know, when you talk about violence in Chicago, you know firsthand, you're not just talking about stats and poll numbers and that type of thing. Your younger brother lucky to be alive as a result of some of that.
Yes.
Can you tell people a little bit more?
That's correct. Last year, absolutely. Last year during Memorial Day weekend, my younger brother was in a car with a couple of his friends when two men walked up and shot the car 25 times. Thankfully, he lived, but his best friend died in his arms. And that's why this issue is so important to me. And I'm so thankful to our Fox News family, which have allowed me to highlight this issue and go into Chicago, interview the gang members, and talk about these various systemic issues, whether it be on Fox and Friends or the Laura Ingraham angle. This is why this is such an important issue. And I know President Trump has recently discussed the consent decrees that are going on in the city of Chicago. The decree address issues like community policing and impartial policing, crisis intervention, use of force, to name a few things.
Now, what do you think about stop and frisk? He was most recently talking about that on Monday.
Yeah, so the stop and frisk issue is something that's been ruled as unconstitutional. And I think when it comes to discussing this issue with President Trump and having Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General, go in and potentially uproot the consent decree, I think it could be problematic. And I would want to caution the administration on that, because we don't want to erode trust between the community. The reason for consent decrees is when there's consideration of police misconduct and corruption. You think about cases like John Burge, who tortured over 200 suspects, him and his team, cost the city of Chicago over $100 million. You think about Johnson Van Dyke with the Laquan McDonald shooting, or you think about a former police officer who was accused of framing over 51 people of murder, and this was folks that were convicted for up to 2,300 years combined. So we have to approach this in a very strategic way, because it isn't, you know, just the shootings in Chicago that we should be concerned about. We should be concerned about the full picture and make sure we have community buy-in, because we want the entire city.
Kanye, that's part. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're running out of time. That's what part of what Kanye is hoping to accomplish. Just quickly, the backlash that he's received. I mean, it really has been disturbing when you listen to some leaders from the black community, you know, saying he's crazy, he's gone to the hospital, you shouldn't listen to him, all that type of thing.
I am completely disturbed that they would go after Kanye in a way that they have. If he were in support of Hillary Clinton, as he has been in support of President Trump, you would not get this backlash. You wouldn't see this from the liberal elite, whether they be white or black, in Hollywood or in Washington, D.C. To consider a man like this, who has been, quite frankly, a genius in his creation of music, went from producing to rapping to now being a fashion mogul. How could you call this guy dumb or stupid, as we see some of my friends on the other side, on other networks, have said about him? I'm completely disturbed that they would go after someone like this, and I know that black conservatives all over the country feel this pain, because we who go on these national platforms are regularly called those things by the liberal left.
Yeah. Well, Gianno, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. I hope he accomplishes a lot. I hope this meeting between President Trump and Colin Kaepernick is able to be negotiated by Kanye West. I think that would be a great thing as well.
I agree.
For our nation. Thank you so much, Gianno.